We've created a data table for our community food app where users can put in information about foods that they like, if that's something that they're into. And our next step is to show how to create records in that data table. So how are users going to get into the app and add records in our data table? Well, I've created this input screen, and this is a text input, this is a drop down, this is a text area, and this is another text input, and then of course a submit button. So the important thing to note is that this thing here is a text area, and this is a drop down, and then the other two things are just text input, these guys. So text area right here, drop down here, text input. And this is just like our public policy or our senior expedition app. The user is going to type in here or select the drop down, then they're going to click submit, and it's going to read a record into the database, or it's going to create a record into the database. So if we're getting information from the user, the first thing that we need to do is an on event. And we'll wire up this button so that when they click submit, this is the submit button. And so when they click the submit button, what has to happen? The app has to get the information from all these input boxes, save it in variables, and then call the create record function in the data toolbox, and it'll create a record in the database. So let's just do that really quickly. We're going to get text from the food name input, and we're going to save that as the food name variable. Then what else do we need? We need the category equals get text from the category dropdown, and description is equal to get text from the description area, the text area, and submitted by, actually we don't need submitted by. Submitted by is going to equal to the username. So we're just going to assume that our user is a logged in user. So we'll say the var username equals some logged in user. Let's just assume that we have a login system and we already have that username. And then the likes count is going to be 0, right? Because there are no likes on this new piece of information. And then the image URL is going to be from that image URL field. So we can just use, let's just use the same. Oh no, I'm sorry. So we'll just, image URL is just get text from this image URL input. And I've got this all whacked up. But get text is, it just takes one parameter. It just takes the ID of the screen element where the user put the text. And so once we do that on event, then all of our variables are populated. We'll have a value, whatever they type in here will be the value for food name. Whatever they select from the dropdown will be category. Whatever they type into the text area will be description. Whatever they paste into the image URL input box will be the image URL, and the submitted by, it will just be their logged in username, and likes count equals 0. And then we just need the create record call to create that record in the data table. So let's just bring this over and drop it in here. Makes total sense to use the code blocks. Our table, what's our table called? We called it foods. And then we just have to build up an object where we use all of these columns in the table, food name, category, description, submitted by, likes count, image URL, and we have to put them in that order, and we have to give them each a value. So this is where food name is the first column, and the value that we're going to put in food name is what's in the variable food name. So this is where it pays off to have our variables name the same thing as our database columns. So the next database column is category, and we're going to put in the category column, we're going to put the value of what's in the variable category. And then the next database column is description, and we're going to put in there the value of what's in our variable named description. And then let's make sure we're doing this in order. So we've got food name, category, description, then we got submitted by, likes count, and image URL. So submitted by, we're going to put in the submitted by is going to be whatever's in user named for our logged in user. And then likes count at this point is going to be 0 because it has no likes. And then the image URL is going to be whatever is in the image URL variable. So there we go. And this, this database, this create record call gets long and unwieldy. But the point here, the main concept is that between this curly bracket and this curly bracket right here, you're putting key value pairs where the left side is the name of the database column and the right side is the value that you want to go in the row that you're creating, in the record that you're creating. And you have to list the database columns in the same order that they're listed in the database. And in this example, for most of the values for the row for the record that we're creating, for most of the values, we're just using variables. But also, you can just put in the value, like in likes count, we're just putting in a value. We're putting in an actual 0. So that's it. You create this record between those two curly brackets, and then this function, this callback function, gets called when the record is created. So by doing this create record, you're sending a message over to the data table, and when the data table inserts that record, it sends a message back, and your callback function executes. So I think it's a good idea to say when the callback arrives, just put a little message to the console just so you as a developer know something happened. And that's it. So let's run it. And let's add chocolate pie, if that's a thing. And that definitely sounds like a dessert, and it's delicious. And the image URL, we don't have one. Let's just leave that blank for now while we test this. So we submit, and we got an error. Console is not a function. Console.log is what it should say. Now, I think the record was probably created because we got all the way down here, and it was going to tell us it worked if I hadn't messed that up. But if I had put .log, we can easily check it. Let's just go to the data table and see, yes, we entered chocolate pie. It's a dessert. It's delicious. Submitted by that user with 0 likes and this image URL. And it actually came in twice. We must have hit the submit button twice. But that's the idea for using create record to create a record in your database. Okay, so next time we'll go into a little more detail about some gotchas, some things to look out for when you're doing that, and then we'll start reading the records.